Продовжуємо гризти граніт науки. Кращі викладачі міста кожного дня готують для вас уроки з математики, фізики, хімії, історії, української мови та багатьох інших. Не будемо зволікати і проведемо цей час з користю. Вважатимемо, що дзвоник вже пролунав. Тож, починаємо.
Nice to meet you, my TV and online students. My name is Світлана Анатольевна. I am a teacher of English from Gymnasia number 7. Today we are going to talk with you about conditional sentences and hope this lesson will be helpful for you. Let us see at the quotation of Nelson Mandela. If you talk to a man in a language he understands, that goes to his head. If you talk to him in his language, that goes to his heart. Such kind of sentences are divided into two parts. The first part is if clause and the second part is main clause. Today we are going to talk about real and unreal conditionals. Let's look at one more quotation. If you want to fly, you have to give up the things that weigh you down. Please pay your attention on the verbs in this sentence. You have want in the present simple and weigh you down in the present simple too. So let's talk at the zero type of conditionals. We use such kind of sentences when we talk about universal truth, obvious things, facts, cause and consequences. Let's pay your attention on this structure. We can use if and when in the if clause, plus past simple, and in the main clause, we use present simple. It's quite easy. Present simple helps us to describe actions that are real. So, let's look at some sentences in order to understand it more clearly. If you freeze water, it turns to ice. It is a scientific fact. If you hit metal, it expands. What happens when you hit water to 100 degrees? If you have problems, talk to your doctor. When you throw salt to the water, it boils later. If you press the power key, a green light appears. If you sweat too much, you dehydrate. Please pay your attention on the third and on the fifth sentences. Here we have a result in the first place. That's why we don't use comma. If condition is in the first place, after it we use comma. Let's answer the questions together. How do you feel when you don't study? When I don't study, I feel that something is missing. You know, modern world requires to be flexible and we have to develop long life learning skills. How do you feel if you play computer games? If I play computer games, I think I waste my time. How do you feel when you are late? When I am late, I feel I am nervous. How do you feel if the weather is sunny? If the weather is sunny, I feel I need a break at work and meet my friends. And now let's look how one famous person used the conditional sentences. Oh, look, it's SpongeBob. You can't win that award if you don't get up for work. Look at this sentence attentively. Here we have negative form of the modal verb and it doesn't change because it is present simple. And one more example. Squidward. Oh, he can't go to work if he doesn't wake up. Quite a familiar situation for most of us. Here we see the negative forms of the verbs too. And now it's time to go ahead. We have one more quotation. If you really want to do something, you'll find a way. If you don't, you will find an excuse. I like this quotation. I usually remember it when I have a lot of important things to do. It helps me. And let's pay attention on the verbs. If you look attentively at the first part of this sentence, you can see that the verb is still in the present form. If you look at the second part, you can find the verb will. And it means that we have next type of the conditional sentences. The first type, we use it for predictions, promises, possibilities, cause and consequences. How do we form it? It's quite easy. If clause is made with present simple and main clause is made with future simple, sometimes we can use imperatives in the second part. So let's continue. Let's see the examples. If I find his address, I'll send him an invitation. If you study hard, you can pass your exams. If I find a girl this summer, I will marry her. If it rains, I will go to the cinema. If she doesn't hurry, she will be late. If you lend him some money, he may not give it back to you. If she doesn't leave the house, everything will be bad. So let's continue our work. Here there is an exercise for you. You have to put verbs in the correct form. Be attentive. There are difficulties in traffic if it snows. Please think a little. Yes, you're right. Next, you will see London Eye if you visit London. Next sentence. If you go to the disco tomorrow, you will dance a lot. And one more. I won't go to the party if it rains. You're right. If you sit in the sun, you get burnt. Please, when you think what form of the verb you have to put, please remember, if we talk about real situations, in the if clause, we use present simple. In the main clause, we can use future simple or imperatives. And let's continue our work. Oh, we have one more picture. You won't mind if I said this here, will you? And next quotation. If I could tell the story in the words, I wouldn't need to lug around a camera. So, let's look at this quotation carefully and pay attention on the verbs. Yes, here we use past simple form, and it means that we have the second type of the conditionals. We use such sentences to talk about hypotheses, unlikely situations, unreal situations, or give advice. Please pay your attention on the structure. In the if clause, we use past simple. In the main clause, we use would or might or could plus verb infinitive. And let's go on. We have some sentences to read. If I had money, I would buy a car. If I knew the answer, I would tell it to you. If Mary had time, she would visit her boyfriend. If he knew her address, he would visit her. If I were 22, I would travel the world. If I were you, I wouldn't do this. If the water weren't salty, the we would water the plants with it. If I had a map, I would lend it to you. I want you to pay attention on these sentences. We have one mistake here. Can you find it? Please look very attentively. Yes, you're right. We have a mistake in the first sentences. The comma is missed here. If clause is in the first place, that's why we had to put it there. Don't forget about this rule and continue. Here we have an exercise for you. Match two halves of the sentences. Please read attentively the first column of this exercise, then the second column of this exercise, and put sentences together. Let's check up your answers. She would stay at home if it rained. If Peter studied hard, he would get good marks. I would go to the cinema if there was a good movie. I would miss the bus if I was late. If we didn't run fast, we wouldn't win the race. The cat would be happy if it drank milk. Now look at your screens once more. Here we have one more exercise for you. There is a mistake in the second part of each sentence. Please correct mistakes. You can borrow the cat tonight if you would take good care of it. If you buy two, you got a third one free. If I had the right tools, I can fix the flat tire myself. He will pass his driving test if he will practice. So, be attentive. Now, let's check up your answers. You can borrow the car tonight if you take good care of it. It is zero conditional. If you buy two, you get a third one free. The same, zero conditional. If I had the right tool, I could fix the flat tire myself. The second conditional. He will pass his driving test if he practices. It is the first type of the conditional sentences. And continue our work. Oh, you could win it too if you tried harder. It's Squidward. He is regret about something. And look at the SpongeBob. He is happy, but Squidward is sad. Maybe he thinks he likes to sleep very much, but he feels regret. And in such situation, we have the next type of the sentences, the third type. Look attentively. If I had woken up on time, I wouldn't have missed the bus last week. Now I lost my job. Let's look at the verbs. Pay your attention on past perfect. I had woken up. So, the situation is that a man hadn't woken up on time, and that was a reason why he lost his job. So, in such situation, we can use the third type to express regret about a situation in the past, hypothesis about the past, theoretical past situations, and impossible situation because it had already happened. Regret. And the structure. It's quite easy. After if we use past perfect, and in the main clause we use would, have, and verb in the third form. And look at some examples. If you had worked harder, you would have passed your exam. If she had found his phone number, she might have called him for the party. If I could have spoken English very well, I would have talked to the tourists in Paris. If I had found her address, I would have sent her an invitation. If she had driven carefully, she wouldn't have had an accident. And I have a very interesting exercise for you. Please look at my pretty student. She continues the exercise which is started. If I hadn't gone to London, I wouldn't have got this job. If I hadn't got this job, I wouldn't have met Pauline. And let's listen to her attentively.
If I hadn't met Pauline, I wouldn't have fallen in love. If I hadn't fallen in love, I wouldn't have got married. If I hadn't got married, I wouldn't have had children. If I hadn't had children, I wouldn't have bought computer games. If I hadn't bought computer games, I wouldn't have had the idea for the computer company. If I hadn't had the idea for the computer company, I wouldn't have started the factory.
So please, you have the list of the verbs in the left part of the slide. Write down and tell these sentences as quickly as you can and try to make a video. Then listen to it. And let's continue our work. And it is connected with watching a video too. Please be attentive. Listen to it. And remember, what kind of sentences do they use?
Hey, how's Iceland?
I love it.
Oh, what a surprise.
It is actually. I don't normally like camping.
If I had the opportunity to visit places like that, I wouldn't complain.
What's the matter with you today, Ollie?
Nothing really.
If you don't tell me, I'll just keep asking.
Yesterday you were so excited, you didn't ask about my exam.
Oh, Ollie, I'm so sorry. You're more important to me than camping and volcanoes.
Well, it doesn't always feel like it.
If I promise to travel less, will you forgive me?
No, because you won't travel less. You love it. And if you travelled less because of me, I'd feel worse, so it's not an option.
You don't make it easy. Seriously, honey, I don't think I knew about the exam. If I'd known, I would have asked. You know that.
Well, anyway, have you been near that volcano? What's its name?
Even if I had 3 days of classes, I wouldn't be able to say it, I don't think. Wait, I can't say it unless I read it. Eyjafjallajökull. There are about 30 active volcanoes in Iceland. The eruption in 2010 of that volcano really wasn't so serious. If it hadn't affected flights, we wouldn't have heard much about it. There's a bigger volcano near it, with a shorter name too. Katla. I've been to see that. The landscape here's awesome. You can't imagine what it's like.
No? Well, I'll never go unless you take me.
Darling, please.
Sorry. What's it like?
It's beautiful. Water, rock, ice, lava, geysers. There aren't many trees, obviously. I'll send photos later.
Look, do you want to speak to Daisy?
Ollie, love.
I'll be okay. Let's talk tomorrow.
Okay. Hi, Daisy.
Hi, Mum.
So, it's time to revise the information you've got today. So, I want to pay your attention that we have discussed real and unreal conditional sentences, and I ask you to remember when we form real sentences, we use simple tenses group to form it. So, we use present simple and future simple and imperatives to talk about real actions. When we want to say something about the imaginary things, we use second and third types of conditional sentences. So, to form these sentences, we need past simple, past perfect, and would. So, let's do one more exercise and revise the information. Be attentive and try to remember the rules. Look here. If I had the opportunity to visit places like that, I will complain, wouldn't complain, and wouldn't have complained. So, how do you think? What is right? Yes, you're right. The second answer is right. I wouldn't complain. It is the second type of the conditional sentences. Next. If you don't tell me, I asking. Let's look. Won't keep, will keep, would have kept. So, the right answer is will keep, the first type of the conditional sentences. Next sentence. If I to travel less, will you forgive me? Promise, promised, had promised. And the right answer is promise, the first type of the conditional sentences. Let's continue. One more sentence. If you, less because of me, I'd feel worse. Traveled, have traveled, travel. And the right answer is traveled. It is the second type of the conditional sentences. Next sentence. If I'd known, I would have asked, will ask, would asked. And the right answer is would have asked. It is the third type of the conditional sentences. And the last sentence. If it flies, we wouldn't have heard much about it. So, affect, affected, hadn't affected. And the right answer is hadn't affected, as it is the third type of the conditional sentences. So, it's time to say goodbye to each other. You were great today. Thank you for your attention. But I want to ask you to do a little homework. So, repeat please all the rules before entering the game. Hope this lesson was informative and helpful for you. Have a nice day. Goodbye.
Сподіваюся, вам було цікаво. Не закидайте навчання. Карантин не назавжди. І все обов'язково буде добре. Побачимось на наступному уроці.